I moved to Saranac Lake about 25 years ago, and I had never lived anywhere longer than 5 years. And here I've been for 25 years, so I really connected to this place through the local history, and it was how I learned how to connect to a place. So in the process of learning about the homes, the buildings, the people that were here, that connected me here.
From NCPR, North Country Public Radio, this is Northwards, introducing you to people you should meet, things you should know about, and voices you should hear from Northern New York, Vermont, Ontario, Quebec, and beyond. I'm Mitch Teich.
Support for production of NCPR's Northwards comes from the J.C. Steiniger and M.E. McDonald Charitable Fund at Adirondack Community Foundation, supporting Schroon Lake Seagull Festival, bringing music to the Adirondacks for over 100 years.
Ethan, hello. Ethan Chancey is our producer at Northwards, and he joins us in the studio before our weekly interviews. Ethan? Actually, Ethan selfishly went on vacation this week, so I am actually all alone in the studio acting. But if Ethan were here, I would no doubt be talking with him about our respective offices at NCPR, which are curiously narrow and have evidence of former plumbing fixtures in the walls. And that is because our offices are former patient rooms. North Country Public Radio is in what was formerly the E.J. Noble Hospital in Canton, New York. Our main on-air studio is, no kidding, a former delivery room, which is why so many of us cry when we use it. That is not true. But sometimes we cry, especially if somebody, spilled ammonia in there, or onions maybe. I am not actually in that studio right now. I am in a tiny little studio across the hall from my office, which may well once have been a hospital broom closet. But the reason I would have brought this up at all with Ethan is that our interview today is about another converted medical building. This one is in Saranac Lake, New York, and it was originally the home and medical office of Dr. E.L. Trudeau, a pioneer in tuberculosis research and treatment. Saranac Lake was the place where a lot of tuberculosis patients went to spend time in the fresh air in so-called cure cottages, sanitariums. Maybe it's sanitaria. I'm not sure. Anyway, after Saranac Lake was no longer a destination for TB patients, the building in question became a more general medical office. Today, though, it's in the process of becoming a new museum to tell the story, the cultural history of Saranac Lake. Amy Catania is the executive director of Historic Saranac Lake, and we sat down in what will one day be a film screening room in the new museum. Thank you so much for having us here.
Thanks for stopping by, Mitch. I'm glad to show you the building.
Why is it important for people to know about this chapter in Saranac Lake and Adirondack history to the degree that growing is what was important for you?
Wow. Well, so, this place where we are here is really central to the history of our community. It's where our first mayor lived. It's where our first doctor was. It's really important in our local community, but it's also incredibly important in the history of the United States. Dr. Trudeau in the history of tuberculosis treatment and scientific research is a story that people from all around the world know, and they come to Saranac Lake wanting to learn more. So there's all sorts of stories that weave through the TB history. And for us, we've been capturing that history, presenting that history for a long time now. This space gives us more room to tell more stories. And it's not just about tuberculosis. That's an important part of the stories that happened here. But in our expanded museum, we'll talk about all sorts of stories in the Saranac Lake region, before TB and after TB.
Let's tell the story of the building that we're in. This building has only recently become part of what will someday be a museum campus.
That's right. So this building was in continuous use as a medical office for, about 125 years. So it's only recently that we purchased it from the doctors who were still working here, and are converting it now into becoming a museum. So it's really appropriate that we'll still be talking about healthcare in this building, but telling a lot of other stories as well.
And it was originally Dr. Trudeau's house.
Yeah, so this was his second home in the village. His first home that was built in this location And then that home burned down. And so that led to him building this home and the Saranac Laboratory next door, where we operate our museum today. So by purchasing this place, we're able to bring these two properties that were on the same deed for a long time back together to both work as museums together.
Well, and the thing that amazes me is, as we were walking through this building and you were showing me some of the before pictures when this was really fairly recently still a medical office building, so many of the people who will come visit this museum will have direct memories of this building for similar reasons that the museum exists.
Exactly. Yeah, that actually makes it really special because local people really, they have memories connected with this place. There's a number of people I know locally whose relatives worked here, their parents and their grandparents. There's people who are in the community who are nurses here. So people have a lot of local connections to this building. Of course, we see people that come through Saranac Lake from all around the world who, a lot of them come and they don't know anything about these stories. So it's our job to both, learn from the local community that often knows more than we do about our local history, capture that history, preserve it for them, but then also tell stories that somebody just passing through that might be here from another country, then they can also sort of understand why this place is here. People are often kind of surprised. Saranac Lake has this beautiful, rather large downtown in the middle of the Adirondack Park. As a community, I think we've really done a good job kind of bringing back a lot of parts of our community. This is one of those success stories. And so tourists come through and they often are sort of curious, how do we have this very built downtown? Why it really does look like a little city in the Adirondacks. And tuberculosis history is really the answer to that. It helps explain why Saranac Lake has the character it does today.
So can you give us a bigger before and after picture what the museum has been like for the years it's been open in the one building versus what it will look like this time next year?
Yeah, so the Saranac Laboratory Museum is a beautiful building. It's a really unique space. We've been operating that for about 15 years now as a museum. There's not a lot of space to tell a lot of stories, so we really do focus a lot on the TB history, the science and the patient care that happened in Saranac Lake. Having this building, that gives us about 5,000 square feet more to tell a lot more stories. So one of the early things that we did was really meet with community members, look at other local institutions and think about what's the scope of the stories we wanted to tell. Is it all about TB? What are the other things if we want to branch out? And what we eventually decided it was really an easy process, was that we really wanted to tell a more comprehensive history of the Saranac Lake region. And that's really the footprint of the school district. So it goes all the way out to Paul Smith's and Bloomingdale, all the way up to Loon Lake. So there's a lot of stories there. And, we, I think, have been somewhat guilty in the past of sort of presenting things as if history began when Dr. Trudeau arrived. And of course, that's not true. There were early settlers who were here long before Trudeau got here, and before that, there were Indigenous people living here for thousands of years. So bringing in an introduction to Indigenous history, and we're working with Dave Fadden of the Six Nations Iroquois Cultural Center. He's helping us with a room that introduces those topics to people. And then talking a little bit about the early history of hunting and guiding, the Adirondack guide boat that is such a part of Saranac Lake's history, the great hotels, the great camps. So we'll be bringing those stories in. And then, of course, the TB industry in Saranac Lake really ended in the 1950s. Of course, TB is still with us, but the antibiotic treatment meant that the patients kind of went home. They were able to take their drugs at home. And so we've been really reinventing ourselves as a village ever since. And that was actually kind of a long time ago, the early 1950s. So talking about what the village is today and where that comes from. We also have a small gallery space to present Doonesbury. And that's a natural connection. Gary Trudeau, the Doonesbury cartoonist, his father practiced medicine in this building, and his grandfather and his great-grandfather.
I have so many Doonesbury questions I could ask, but I'll redirect here. It really does sound like more than a medical history museum. this campus is a cultural history campus.
It really is. And I think, one of the things you do with an exhibit design team is early on, you sort of look at what are the unifying themes. You don't want to just sort of present a laundry list of topics. And what really grows out of the local history when we look at it is the importance of the natural environment. That was the thing that sustained indigenous people here for thousands of years. It's what attracted early settlers here. It's what attracted the healthcare industry, was the fresh air and the natural environment. And it's what really sustains Saranac Lake in many ways today with recreation and tourism. Logging is still, a thing, has been an important part of our history for a long time. So, those are sort of the stories that link all of the history of the region.
Well, and I think the other thing that struck me as you were talking about how the tuberculosis from a patient standpoint, history of Saranac Lake really ended in the 1950s. We think of the idea of medical tourism as sort of a modern concept, but that's really what we were talking about when people came to Saranac Lake for decades.
Sure, yeah. I mean, there was that idea that just to get away from if you're sick in a place, in a city, to be able to get away somewhere where the air feels a little better and people are taking care of you, that is something that's going to improve your state of mind and hopefully your physical health as well. And so that was really kind of, that's what they had before they had the magic bullet of medicine. They had that sort of long-term rest care. And it's interesting, it's something that I think resonates with a lot of us as we get older. We think to ourselves, boy, it sure would be nice if we could get away for a while and experience the fresh air rest cure. So, in some ways, there are things that we learn about our medical history in Saranac Lake that really resonate today.
And there was a parallel to be drawn during the COVID pandemic when people really did flee the cities and looked for open space.
Sure, yeah, we saw a lot of parallels during COVID. It was really interesting. We often saw parallels between the lives of the TB patients and the lives of people who were lucky to be able to isolate at home. That wasn't everybody's situation, but those of us who were just sort of sitting at home trying to stay well, we were sort of living a lot like TB patients. And so we wrote an essay pretty much every week that connected some theme that we were experiencing with local history, things that we had seen in letters and photographs. So an appreciation for the natural environment, an interest in cooking and pets and letter writing and reading, music, all of these things that if you think back to, there were these sort of trends during COVID that were so much a part of the patient experience during TB.
Is it possible for you to step back at this stage and think about what it has taken to go from what was here to where we're sitting now? I mean, we're sitting in a room that will eventually be a film room, but, all around us, rooms are being converted from, former medical space to exhibit space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's actually really fun to just walk through the building and see how much has changed. And we had a big celebration. We had over 200 people here to celebrate with us the completion of construction. So, it's been a very long process, a whole lot of work. We put together a program, and it was hard to get all the names in the program. A long list of names of people who worked on this building, the contractors, the masons, the electricians, HVAC. There's just a huge number of skilled people that have put in a ton of work on this project. We knew that it was going to be successful because we found a really good contractor. That's a key part of it. And we also raised the money. So it was really about money, time, and work. And all of those things came together for us. And we were, it took more time, money, and work than we expected. But we initially made the decision to do this because we knew it mattered to people. And that was the thing that carried us through. People really did care about this project. They still do.
You were telling me as we were walking through that for some people, when they walked in here, as it was still, just recently a medical office, they couldn't picture what you were trying to accomplish.
Yeah, the building changed a lot. So when we purchased it, it was really a maze of many broken up little patient rooms. I think there were like 20 patient beds in this building, 20 little individual sinks, lots of carpet, lots of drop down ceilings. It was a very functional building, and it did a great job taking care of people for 125 years. But that's a very different use than what we're doing. And so our job was to really bring it back to the footprint of what it was during Trudeau's lifetime, when most of the building was his own personal home. So we took out a ton of things. We took out a lot of walls and ceilings and got back to the original footprint. And once we were able to do that, then we could bring people through and they could sort of see it. Like they could understand, oh, this is a home. It's not going to be a house museum because we don't have a collection to show in that way. We don't have Dr. Trudeau's china, but you will get the experience of being in his old home. And it was really, for Saranac Lake, a very grand home. It was built for, a person who was an important person in town, and a person who, saw a lot of patients here as well.
Do you have any personal memories of this place as a medical office?
I do, yeah. I came here for a couple of medical appointments too.
Weird to have it be part of your before and after life.
It is a little funny, when it was a medical office, it also still felt like a house. Like it had these interesting quirks. So they had a lot of the old wallpaper was still in here, and the reception, when you would come in and just sit down, that was the Trudeau parlor, and it really felt like a parlor. So people, they never, in the community, I think there's been this sort of collective memory that this was Trudeau's home. And so that's nice. People aren't really surprised to see what it looks like now. It's sort of like we've uncovered the bones that people had sort of always imagined were here.
Did you find anything unexpected or surprising when the contractor came through and basically dismantled what had been here for so long?
There weren't a whole lot of surprises. I mean, one of the things you do with historic preservation is you hire a historic preservation consultant, an architect, and so their job is to do a whole lot of investigations before you even get started, because you have to sort of document, what is the existing conditions of the building, what were what's the original historic fabric. And so we didn't find a whole lot of surprises. We did find layers of wallpaper, so you would peel back a layer and then you'd find something new. For a long time, we couldn't figure out where the dining room was. We had this sort of active debate about where the dining room was. And one day I came over here, a light bulb went on in my head, because we have all these old photos of Trudeau in his dining room. And I came over and I lined up the photo with this chimney that's right behind you. And I said, oh, on the other side, that's where the hearth was. And we took out a bathroom, changed a hallway, and there was the dining room. And now we have a photo of Dr. Trudeau sitting in that spot that we'll display in the museum.
I assume, maybe I shouldn't assume, but I do assume that the fundraising still continues.
Yes, the fundraising continues. We're more than halfway, well more than halfway. The significant expense was really doing this construction work. We've raised over half what we need for the museum exhibits, so we're on our way with that, which is awesome. And we have another phase to do at the laboratory, which is to build an entrance there that will integrate the traffic flow and make it accessible for everybody. So we're still raising money. We've been extremely successful so far, so we're trusting that people are going to help out to get us to the finish line.
In the history of historic Saranac Lake as a going concern, if you will, how significant is the progress that these two buildings have made?
Oh, for us, it's something that we're extremely proud of. There's a lot of people that have been involved with Historic Saranac Lake since it was founded in 1980, and some of them, one of our board members is one of the founding board members of Historic Saranac Lake. She came back with us just a few years ago. So there's a lot of pride and excitement about it. And, there are people that we've lost along the way, and so that's hard for us because we know how much they would care today. Mary Hotelling was one of our founders and the leader of Historic Saranac Lake for a long time. She was our historian, our architectural historian, and she really helped say to all of us, we need to do this. Like she helped sort of move everybody to make the decision to do this project. She wasn't able to see it completed, but we know she would be very happy to see it.
Why does this story, the story of the Trudeau Institute, the story of the people who came here, why does it matter so much to you?
Well, for me, I moved to Saranac Lake about 25 years ago, and I had never lived anywhere longer than 5 years. And here I've been for 25 years, so I really connected to this place through the local history, and it was how I learned how to connect to a place. I didn't really know how to do it otherwise. So in the process of learning about the homes, the buildings, the people that were here, that connected me here. And some of those stories are just incredibly important to me. They've connected me to people that I know today because they also care about those stories. So the first research I did was about Spanish-speaking patients in Saranac Lake. I was a Spanish teacher before I had this job. And I've met people who were here from Cuba and Puerto Rico. I was able to talk to their family members. So when you really get into local history, you really grow your group of friends. Some of them are people you'll never meet in person, but that for me has been really important.
Could the Amy Catania who moved here 25 years ago have imagined that you would be the Amy Catania sitting here having this conversation?
No, I don't think so. Although my first love in college, I was a Latin American history major, so this job actually brings all that together. Public history, the process of storytelling and finding connections between people, I think that's always been sort of what has interested me about being a human. And so I get to do that in my job today. So I guess it's no accident.
I imagine you know more about tuberculosis than you expected you'd know.
I never thought I would know so much about tuberculosis. And it's all of us laugh about that we all sort of pretend to be scientists, and we really, it's a little dangerous. We are not experts in science and medicine, but we do talk an awful lot about TB.
Yeah, you don't sell the junior pulmonology kit in the gift shop.
We do have quite a few interesting items in the gift shop for kids related to TB. So.
Well, Amy Catania, congratulations on getting this far, and we'll eagerly await the grand opening next year.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Amy Catania is the executive director of Historic Saranac Lake. I talked with her in what will be a new museum next door to the existing Laboratory Museum on Church Street. You can see some photos of the space at ncpr.org/northwards. And before I shut off the recorder, Amy stopped me and pointed out there is one part of the new museum building that is already open to the public.
The one thing that we haven't really talked about is our research room and our collection storage, and our archivist and curator walked by as we were talking.
We stole her chairs, in fact.
We did take her chairs, and one of the things that's exciting here is that space is open already. It will be, she is sort of doing a soft opening. So that we have an extensive collection related to local history. We now have a space where people who are researching, finding out about genealogy or other things they're working on, they can come and access the collection. So that is a really important thing for a museum, to have a space like that, and we're very happy to have that now.
And that is the full Historic Saranac Lake archives. It's not just linked to Trudeau.
That's right. It's all sorts of things related to community history.
Northwards is a production of the good folks here at North Country Public Radio, including Ethan Shanty, Bill Hanel, and Caitlin Kelly. You can listen to our back issues, subscribe to the weekly Northwards newsletter, and help support the production of this show from ncpr.org. I'm Mitch Teich. Thank you so much for listening. This is NCPR, North Country Public Radio.